So we can maybe slowly go to the main topic of today's podcast, which is actually talking about React Navigation V5, which is your latest that we will probably explore in details in a second. But before we do it, I quickly wanted to touch bases on something that you said before regarding animations. Since you said that many people were looking for amazing animations and were not happy with the JavaScript animations offered by Navigation Experimental or Navigator iOS and all these libraries. I kind of wanted to check what's the animation story of React Navigation V5. I think that there are some changes that you might want to tell us about, but I'll leave that secrets up to you.
Definitely, Mike. So, uh, React Navigation, when it started, it was built entirely in JavaScript, and which was like, as I said, it was very beneficial for faster iteration for us. But eventually, we realized that we cannot just do JavaScript-based animations because sometimes they wouldn't be as performant. And when we started React Navigation, the animated API for React Native had only JavaScript based animation, which means any other expensive task you do in your app could block that animation, and it could cause a choppy experience. So we wanted like smooth animations without any drop frames, and we wanted it to like feel good. So first thing we did is we migrated to the native driver. So we had to completely rewrite the architecture to do that because our old code relied on JavaScript based animation a lot. So we had to re-architecture stuff a lot to make sure that for every animation we use native driver. So that's the first thing we did. And another thing we did is incorporate gesture handler and reanimated. So gesture handler and reanimated help you to build completely native driven gestures and animations, which also helped us avoid JavaScript based animations. Our door navigator is built with reanimated, and it made it very smooth. Earlier it was implemented with like JavaScript animations, which means there was lag whenever you swipe it. So that was the second thing we did. Then another thing we focused on is like we just didn't want to have everything in JavaScript. We wanted to build a hybrid approach. So for some navigators we thought, okay, JavaScript makes sense for this, but we should also have some native options. So recently we did two navigators which are implemented in native. So there is a new native stack navigator which is fully native web stack navigation. It is like the Wix native navigation, but you can use the React Navigation API instead of a Wix native navigation API. So this native stack is from React Native Screens, and it provides very similar API as the JavaScript based stack, and it has a bit less customization from the JavaScript stack, but you get full native experience. And another navigator we recently migrated to native backend is Material Top Tabs, which provides you a sliding tab experience on Android and iOS. So we migrated it to use View Pager library, which is a completely native implementation using the native API to implement swipe. So yeah, these two navigators are completely native, which are very useful for performance critical apps. And if you want more customizability and your app doesn't have very expensive things, you can just use the JavaScript stack, which works quite well unless like you have very heavy screens everywhere. So yeah, that was our approach. To summarize, use native driver, then use gesture handler and reanimated, and then use a mix of JavaScript and native APIs to build our navigators. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for explaining that. And actually, I have to tell you that I'm so happy that these long discussions about animations are now going to be over. There were so many people always discussing whether React Navigation's approach to re-engineer animations in JavaScript was correct. I remember long pull requests of people reverse engineering Apple animation curves and interpolations just to make it look native. And now we have best of both worlds, the JS API and native, sort of animations. I think this aligns very nicely with the React Native power itself. So that's great.